do this.
Sorry.
So a little distracting to see myself so huge talking to myself. So,
better for us.
a sign of not having abandoned self-grasping. So it's a fine line between those who have perfected self-grasping and those who have abandoned self-grasping. In both cases, they have no problem staring at themselves, talking to themselves. And everyone in between, it's hard to handle. Buddhas and megalomaniacs, fine line sometimes. So yeah, point 5. That's so in order to kind of shake things up a little bit in that series, I said let's start with 5, because 5 is those lines that says, you know what, you want to know how well things are going for you with regards to your spiritual life, your spiritual development. It says you want to know that, you don't know. Well, take a look at these lines. It says, look at these lines and see, because this is how you measure how your mind training is going, right? So point 5. So maybe you can remind me what I said in that series.
Well, then you went back to the foundational points too.
Yes.
We also
back to the preliminaries, right? So once we sort of know, this is what this is for. Now we can go back and start from where the text starts, which is point number 1. Begin with the preliminaries, right? So you all have covered basically point 5 and started point 1, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So yeah, I don't have obviously anything planned for what I want to say today, and but I can always think up something to say, which I already did. But maybe if you have questions or comments about so far point 5 and point 1, or perhaps my particular one tune that I keep playing for this Lojong text, maybe we can have some questions or discussions about that.
We had a lot of discussion last week about the emptiness question and the practice of absolute bodhicitta, or the development of absolute. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that. I mean, we were
so like, you have started second point already then?
No, not really. We were still you addressed it in your talk. So that's why we're talking about it.
Okay, right. But little patience then, I would say.
Yeah.
So that we can be introduced to it in a more, in the way that the text handles it. That will be in the second point, yes. So, but tell me a little bit about the emptiness question.
Who wants that? Steve, do you want to? Steve was asking, we were talking about logic too. We were talking about the way people reach it through logic, but also what's the experiential. Do you want to say anything, Steve?
Well, as I recall, I suggested that emptiness was the origin of our reality in which we live. I mean, it's kind of a metaphysical perspective. If you want to play metaphysics, thinking of emptiness in that way. I mean, I think there's a lot of confusion on why is it called emptiness, and I guess I'm thinking it's empty of the nature of this realm. I mean, what we know of in this physical realm is not there. What we know of as the physical realm comes from there. So that's the origin. But I don't know if that's kind of more of a mind game than anything.
Uh, yeah, you could say that, but they were hotly debated by Buddhists as well. So it's if it's a mind game, many Buddhists participated in it because especially in a time where there was no Netflix and HBO Max and Twitter and whatever. You got to do something. They had 24 hours. We have 24 hours. You got to find things to occupy your mind with. And there were great debates, around these questions. And certainly, I would say there was one camp that parked themselves very comfortably in the camp that your take on what emptiness is part of, which is the emphasizing that it is empty of the confused reality that you and I know right now, but it's somehow the underlying ground, with all the caveats about it's not a self, it's not a thing, it's not a blah blah blah, it's not it's not an object of fixation, but nonetheless it is sort of like the the ground of the non-ground of all being, right? Therefore, it is called emptiness. So there's definitely one clear voice within this debate on what emptiness is that will emphasize that.
I think what got us started last week was there was a statement on that you said that when we were looking at the first point in preliminaries, that the one aspect was meditation, and the second aspect was to begin generating the two awakening minds.
Yes.
And then one of those was relative bodhicitta, I think, or aspiration bodhicitta, and engagement bodhicitta.
Yeah. So relative bodhicitta has those two aspects, which is the aspiration and the engagement. So they would fall in this text under relative bodhicitta. Then the other bodhicitta is the ultimate bodhicitta. And ultimate bodhicitta pertains to this topic of emptiness. Yes, that's correct. So the other camp, since I always, right, when you say there's one camp, then you need to have at least one other camp, if not more camps. The other camp will say that no, let's not go that far and talk about the ground of everything, but that emptiness is to be understood as a way of viewing things and a way of relating to all our experiences that the Buddha taught to be skillful in removing suffering.
Removing.
Yeah. So as Steve, as you already pointed out, that what you said is kind of more based on a metaphysical concern or perspective. So then this other position, you could say, is based more on and here religious studies talk or vocabulary, a very big word, a soteriological concern. Soteriological concern is pertaining to, this word comes from, Christian context. Like it pertains to liberation, salvation, soteriology, like the the field of knowledge pertaining to how you become saved, how you become, I mean, in Buddhist terms, we don't have saviors, so how you become liberated. Yeah, so then this perspective will say, let's not actually turn emptiness into metaphysics. Let's understand emptiness in terms of, you could say, strategy that the Buddha gave to protect us from suffering and to finally free us from suffering.
Is this concept of liberation found in all religions? Because this is your area, right? It is religious studies, a broad view on religious studies.
What view of liberation?
Well, the idea of liberation, something that, of course, we resonate very well with in the Eastern traditions. I'm wondering if we find this pretty much in all traditions.
I don't know. I guess you could say, all religions begin with proposing a problem, a central problem, and then proposes a solution to the central problem, As to what the central problem is, I would say each religion has its own kind of way of talking about what that problem is. Buddha will say the problem is dukkha, what we translate as suffering. Now, can I then take that and say, well, actually Christians are concerned about that, Muslims are concerned about that, Hindus are concerned about that, Taoists are concerned about that? Yes, I would say so, but that's my Buddhist terms. I am now translating all other religious experiences into a language that I understand, as a Buddhist. Is it a fair translation? Maybe a Muslim will disagree and a Hindu will disagree. Christians will probably say, the central problem is the problem of sin. Is sin suffering? Well, in my Buddhist terms, I would say, oh yeah, that's, suffering. But a Christian may or may not recognize my concern with suffering. So is it or is it not? Well, depends on what you're looking for. Recently, I was having coffee with someone who is a born-again Buddhist,
Yeah.
like very, very, certain flavor of like being Buddhist, and also like a particular form of Buddhism. No need to go into what form it is, but like, this is it. So she asked me, I don't know how sincerely curious that question is, or just a way to start a debate,
Mhm.
Then she said, so would you say that, basically, right, all the different forms of Buddhism, whatever they are, that they're basically the same thing? So she wanted yes or no answer from me, Now, of course, I have absolutely no idea, where she would take it if I either say yes or no. But I said, well, depends on what you're looking for, I said. If you're looking for difference, there are lots of differences. And even important differences, meaningful differences. If you're looking for similarity, I said, you will find similarity, no problem. So I said, depends on what you're looking for. You're looking for a fight? There are many grounds for a fight. And not all fights are bad, because it can sharpen our, understanding. Not all fights are bad. And not all agreements are good. It could make us lazy and fuzzy. I said, if you want to look for similarities, you don't have to look very hard, you'll find them. If you want to look for differences, not very hard to find differences. and not necessarily differences that we need to kill each other for. In fact, there are differences that we can appreciate and suffering. Just like the potluck last night, you know, if everyone just brought curry, you know, oh my God, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
And there was someone who was just, you know, an onlooker, so to say, to that. And they were like, you know, well, you definitely frustrated that attempt to start a fight. I said, well, I don't know. We don't know, you know, where she was going to take this.
Do you have much familiarity with indigenous religions?
Indigenous to where?
Just in general, like say American Indian or South American
Oh.
Indian, or
No, I don't know. You know, here and there, some knowledge, some having heard some rumors.
rumors.
They do or do not believe, you know.
Yeah.
Tell me to like raise our
I mean,
hand.
one thing I can say is like when it comes to this very amorphous category of indigenous religions, one thing I can say based on, again, the little that I know, the moment we try to generalize what they are, we have missed the point. Because they are so based on, you know, the land that they stand on and the stories and the experiences of that land, that square meter, that, you know, right there. That then if I feel if we start generalizing what it is about, I feel like indigenous religions, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, part of its dynamic is to resist universalizing their specific experience. Now, in the marketplace of spirituality, to make relevant, you have to universalize. Yes, so here I show my bias. Whatever indigenous religion or religious leader, when they speak to us, they are universalizing to some degree. Because these traditions are under threat. The McDonald's effect, you know, the Starbucks effect is to flatten all differences. Yeah, every McDonald's, every Starbucks works because anywhere you go in the world, you can be reassured that you are safe, even if it is like yucky safe, you know. Like McDonald's. I took my hippie students one time to India, you know, and these are hippie students who will not be caught dead, you know, seen in the McDonald's. But when we finally spent like 2 weeks in Ladakh, out in the middle of nowhere, camping, this, that, you know, when we got to Delhi, and we got to this, you know, in this Connaught place, this like kind of shopping place, Connaught place, you know, and we're like, okay, see you all in an hour and a half or 2 hours, you know. And it didn't take long for all of us to gravitate to the McDonald's in Connaught Place and just sit in there because Connaught Place was really overwhelming. There were so many differences that we didn't recognize, that they didn't recognize. So there is the security of, you know, I know McDonald's, you know, even if I don't like it, but I know McDonald's. And true enough, you know, it felt secure, you know. Some people just sat there the whole 2 hours and didn't want to walk around and, you know, and waited until time to get on the bus.
I think we have a question here
Yes.
about Or
Yeah.
small, yeah.
Chris does, yeah.
Hi,
Okay.
Dr. Lai.
Yes.
We all have different books.
Mm,
We all
mhm.
just
Yeah.
Lojong. And
Yes.
in your introducing the first step, the preliminaries,
Mhm.
I think well, I wanted to ask you about that because different authors, I like the author of the book I have on Lojong has another book that he refers to where he talks about what the preliminaries are, and he basically says, go read that if you want to know them. And in your, each of us has different instructions exactly for what they are. And you talked about the 21 breaths. I wonder if you could say more about what the preliminaries are. Like, is there a common basic practice that we ought to make sure we do?
So there are two sets of preliminaries, so to say. There is the preliminary to using the formal meditation technique that this text advocates. And so the 21, counting to 21, right, is a preliminary to effectively using the method that this text advocates. Yeah, so that's on the technique side of things and the preliminary to that technique. Then there is the preliminaries that are about view, what we call view, meaning understanding. What kind, and that understanding is related to, is a form of what I was referring to. Well, are they the same or different? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. You're looking for a fight? Then we have to look in this direction. You're looking for agreement? Then we have to look from this direction, right? And here I don't mean fight in a negative sense, right? I mean fruitful fight. Okay. I mean, fight in the negative sense, if that's what you're interested in, then there's no commonality. Let's not even talk, right? Like, I don't want to enter the ring. But if fight, to kind of get clarity, oh yes, let's start, right? So this is about view. So, you could practice Lojong for very different reasons. And what this is, this was originally taught for. And so what this originally taught for is to overcome dukkha, suffering, and to achieve the liberation that is free from dukkha. And so that's the most important preliminary, right? So issuing from that most important preliminary understanding, view, that the fundamental existential problem is the problem of dukkha. And from there, if we don't want dukkha, if we don't want suffering, if we don't want dissatisfaction, stress, dis-ease, what do we need to do? Well, we need to abandon the causes of suffering. And so now cause and effect comes in. Right? It said that everything the Buddha taught can also be summarized as cause and effect. Nothing exists not based on cause and effect. This is kind of a central Buddhist point. Nothing exists. Nothing turns up without a set of causes. Right? So there's no effect without causes. Now, when we zoom in further, this causes, now we also hear this word conditions. And so this is further refining what we mean by causes. Causes in cooperation, supported by conditions, produce results. And so we would use the analogy of like, you have a seed that is not burnt, so that is a condition. You need to have a seed, right? And it is not burnt, meaning the seed is capable of sprouting. So capable of sprouting is a condition. The seed is the cause. Then stick it into the soil, the right kind of soil, all those are conditions. The right amount of sunlight, the right amount of dampness, all of that. Those are conditions. Okay, clearly these are analogies. So cause is any intentional action that we take of body, speech, and mind. That is the seed. Now, is this seed still capable of sprouting or not? Has it been fried? If it has been fried, then no matter what good conditions you produce it, it is never going to sprout, right? If it is not fried, then no matter how long you keep it in a dark room, how long it has been deprived of conditions, the moment you provide it with the right conditions, it will sprout. So both positive and negative karma that we have created is similarly like that. Those seeds. Both positive and negative karma, if those seeds have been fried, they will not produce results. If they have not been fried, it's a matter of when conditions conspire together, so to say, and it will sprout. So from there, then we say, okay, then we need to begin to deal with, right? What are the causes and conditions of suffering? Causes and conditions of suffering. How do we stop creating causes and putting ourselves in the midst of conditions that create suffering? So now, in the various commentaries, majority of them will tell you this is when you need to train in infusing your attitude, your mind, your heart with what's known as the four thoughts that turn the mind. First, contemplating how rare and therefore how we should appreciate having a human life with all the right conditions for practicing Dharma. So the traditional list of the leisures and the freedoms. Freedom meaning we're free from 8 conditions that will impede our ability to practice Dharma. Leisures mean that they are the endowments, and they have a list of like 10 positive conditions that we possess and 8 negative conditions that we are not controlled by. And when we reflect on that, those 18 points, we see, wow, I have a great opportunity. I have a great life. It's because, right, we don't base like success and failure in life on these 18 things. Instead, we count our successes and failures in life based on worldly definitions, right? Oh, a meaningful job, a good paying job, a house of this size, a car of that make, a reputation of this sort, being appreciated by people in this way and that way, not being maligned by people in this way or that way. So as long as we are measuring our successes and failures, our successes and failures based on all these other things, then you're on your own, you know. But if you look at it from the perspective of the 18 endowments and freedoms, then I can dare say, you know, if you are here sitting here listening to this, you have all 18. And when you have those 18, you don't know how to appreciate that you have the 18. Instead, you get distracted by. Get distracted by what? Get distracted by, that croissant, that is only available on Sunday mornings once a week, but the person in front of me bought 10. It's ruined your day, your week even, you would say. I waited the whole week. Yeah, so then substitute the croissant for whatever heck it is that you think is going to bring meaning and fulfillment in your life. So then we get distracted from those 18 things that we do have. So that's the first of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. Okay? And so, like the book says, refer to this other book and you'll find out all 4 of them.
It's true. They're all over the place. You can find them.
Yeah.
That's the view side. The method side, if you're going to engage in the method taught under point number 2, especially second part of point number 2, then you have to begin to gain familiarity with using breath and counting breath to 21. Why? That is the immediate training to do what? To give you better control in not being distracted. Ultimately, what distraction? The distraction of the croissant. But that's ultimately, and so between training 21 breath and croissant, there's a long way. But eventually, it feeds into the same. It goes in the same direction. So now we're on point 5. When all dharmas, when all practices converge on a single point, I'm going in the right direction. So then we start with anchoring our attention on breath. And here in the ancient commentaries, it prescribes counting to 21 quite consistently. So this is their particular style. And other teachers, other meditation techniques that you have learned, have come across, maybe they say count 1 to 10. Here it says count 1 to 21. And then it says in those commentaries, when you are able to successfully keep with 21 without being distracted, then you are ready. Then you are ready to go to the next step, which is breathing in certain things, breathing out certain other things, all of that. Other questions? Or follow up from that, maybe?
That was a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. You answered
Yeah,
my
that was a
question.
very good question.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad it was answered. A lot of times I'm just talking.
You said you had something on your mind you were going to talk about.
I said I'm always able to come up with something.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, so, but instead of doing that, let's see if there are questions.
Okay.
I have a follow-up from that.
Okay, good.
But this is just, I know you've told me this before, but, and so all
Ask for the
dharmas,
benefit of others.
Yeah, sure. So going back to point 5, all dharmas have a single unified purpose. So that's another way of saying the way you phrased it. All dharmas come from the same point. Right?
Not
So
come from the same point.
I forgot exactly how you said it. But you're talking about that first point of point 5.
Here, let's look at the text,
Come from the same point.
all the different translations. Let's see if you have if whatever book you're responsible for, read your translation of point number 1 or line number 1. Let's get clear with our vocabulary.
Okay.
Line number 1 of point 5. The one that I have here says all dharmas converge on a single point.
Okay, mine says all dharmas have a single unified purpose.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay.
Mine says all agrees on at one point.
yeah,
Agrees at one
that's
point.
what mine says. All dharmas agree at one point.
Okay.
My question says, it doesn't say what yours said. Maybe it says, these contemplations are what inspire us to practice. Reflecting on them gives us the reason for mind training.
Maybe you're in a different place in the text, I think.
Where are y'all? Well, we all have,
5. That's okay. Let's see.
wait, are you on 5?
Yes, 5.
Yeah.
1.
Need a goal to be motivated. Knowing the extent to which this practice will grow, as well as how to gauge progress on this path, provides us with a supportive framework. So the 5th key point is the measure of proficiency gained in mind training.
Yes, but that's just introducing the section. It's not the root
Yeah,
text.
that's all. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, the root text. So what the root text, okay, is saying is, in its, I think I would argue like the translation I have, it's the bare minimum without interpretation. It just says all dharmas converge on a single point. It's not saying it should. It's not saying you should make it. It's not saying anything like that. Of course, it can be translated in those directions. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
take the bare line. All the line is saying is all dharmas converge on a single point.
Right. And my question is the single point the overcoming suffering, the truth of suffering, and then
Good. Yes. In the Lojong tradition, it will say, in the commentary, it says the single point is overcoming self-grasping.
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's that question we always ask about that we didn't understand that says, bringing all blame into one.
Yeah, that's something else. Yes, that line.
But you said the answer to that is self-clinging.
Yes, self-grasping as well. Yes, and that is a prescription that you should do that. You should drive all blames into one, which is self-grasping, right?
Right.
Here, point number 5. My point about, again, my one tune, right? My single tune song is.
Yeah.
Number 5 is not telling you should do this. Number 5 is telling you that when you see that everything that you practice, you're starting to understand that it converges on this single point, and then footnote, and it's to overcome self-grasping, then things are going well. But then if you find that, I think this practice is for this, that practice is for that, and that 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 is for that, and you're like, I don't feel like they are addressing self-grasping, then it's saying, well, more work to do. Yeah, it's not saying force them all to become overcoming self-grasping. I mean, there is a secondary point, but here, this is a test. How well am I practicing? Well, when I begin to relate to all my practices as overcoming self-grasping, then it's going in the right direction. Yeah.
Thank you.
So here it's not dukkha per se. Of course, in the end, of course, it is about dukkha. Now self-grasping is identified as the cause of dukkha.
Yeah. Right.
Wow. Yeah. It's I love this meeting.
Yeah, this Lojong instructions are really wonderful. I just want to say a warning, right? And so I think I covered a little bit of this in that series. Like, we also should remember that apparently these teachings were kept secret for a long time.
Yeah.
So of course now, we all find it to be very inspiring, very and like look at how many different translations and commentaries have been published, and so now we just assume like, wow, this is good for everyone, right? Okay, fine, that's fine. We cannot like what do they say? You can't get the toothpaste to go back in the tube anymore. But remember, at one point it was in the tube, and apparently they say, don't spread this around. So it's telling us something, and what it's telling us is it's also easy to get harmed by this. You're like, wait, what do you mean? Nobody ever said that you could get harmed by this, right? What am I referring to? I'm referring to it's these instructions can easily feed our Messiah complex problem. We can suffer from Messiah complex in two ways. One, we think we are. Two, we regret that we are not. Lurking underneath, like, oh, I'm not like Mother Teresa. And then we think, oh, to be a good person, I need to force myself to actualize 59 slogans. Then I think we have misunderstood what these instructions are for. In fact, these instructions, it says, no, keep it secret. Why keep it secret? It's not because you're selfish. It's because you don't want to put this burden on everyone to say, you need to be like this. No, only when someone is inspired to be like this, in a way, then these become very useful.
Yeah, I was always wondering about that. It's like, because there's a certain level of like common sense. It's really easy in a way to grasp the thrust of things, and that it would be too easy to make that list, and then you want that in the end to get a sash like the Boy Scouts with all little badges on it. I've gotten, I get one more and I'm an Eagle Scout or something, I'm a Dharma Scout,
Yes. Yes.
That's really, I hadn't really thought of that. Thank you.
One way I think I thought of this, it's applying to myself, is when I first began a few years ago.
I think, Jim, you took this live, right? This course?
I did. And when I first when I first began this counting to 21, I actually found getting to 21 pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized, I started thinking about, counting to 21 undistracted.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that my automatic mind can count to 21, but I can be thinking about this croissant.
Yes.
At the same time. And so I was thinking, no, I'm not really doing this. And counting 3 was not very easy.
Yes, yes.
You know, I mean, just getting to 3.
Yeah, like we got good at counting, you know.
Yeah, I'm very good at counting, but
As for distraction, you know, like not sure.
and I ask you something. What helped me see that? I remember asking you a question about this somehow, and you said there are levels and levels to this.
Yes.
And that was so helpful.
Yes. Yes. There's so many layers, you know, to this, to our own process, you know. So there is a basic level of like getting, like say, what's known as the four thoughts that turn the mind. So it's not saying that we need to completely penetrate all levels of the four thoughts. In fact, the only way you completely penetrate all levels of the four thoughts that turn the mind is when the mind has been turned and now you are Buddha.
Yeah.
Right? At the end, you know, like what is Buddhahood? Buddhahood is when you've fully, completely, thoroughly embody the four thoughts. But if you wait until then to start practicing, right, the next point number 2, then that day will never come. But enough of four thoughts that turn the mind to appreciate, right, the problem of distraction, what we're distracted by, what we should focus on. Then we enter second point. Then enough of like the first part of second point is pertaining to emptiness. Enough of some understanding of emptiness that will, I would say now we fast forward a little, kind of like a preview. Basically, this meditation on emptiness is to create space. Because the next stage is going to create some tightness, some almost like claustrophobia. Because you are going to open the can of worms of looking into your own stuff and then taking other people's stuff.
Yeah.
It can become very tight, you know. But then your Messiah complex says, no, this is good, this is good. You know, I want to be altruistic. Like, who doesn't want that? All altruistic people get a theme song. Can I choose mine? You know? So it can get very tight, you know. But so before you jump into that tightness, we all want to be altruistic. We all want to be radiating love to everyone, taking on everyone's suffering, you know. But that is not easy at all. Yes, just dealing with an annoying person at work would drive me up the wall. So if we literally breathe in other people's stuff, can we handle that? So don't touch that yet until you have learned how to be able to bring in space whenever you need it. That's what those meditation on emptiness is. Putting aside what is really the meaning of emptiness, yeah, put that aside first. Understand that it's a method to bring in space, to breathe in space, and to breathe out space for others. Breathe in space for ourselves, breathe out space for others. Let's all have a lot of space to work this out. So not 9 crazy cats in a closet, 9 crazy cats in a big open field. Okay, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, talk to someone else who knows. They know my favorite thing. No, I don't have anything against cats, to be clear, but neither am I a cat person, obviously. But don't get stuck, you know, in a closet with 9 crazy cats. Go to a big meadow. When they have a lot of space, when you have a lot of space, you can work things out. So that meditation on emptiness, that ultimate bodhicitta, on the most basic level, as Jim, you're saying, you know, there are layers, you know, there are levels too. So if we can just have a taste of that most basic level, breathe in space, breathe out space. It's not so tight. Don't let it be so tight. Doesn't have to be so tight. Doesn't have to be so heavy. Now, before we veer off in La La Land, that's when we need to start breathing in our junk. And it's not literally breathing in our junk, our crap. It's turning our attention to it. Seeing all the mental defilements that are constantly conspiring to create suffering and stress in our lives. In fact, the instructions there says, begin with yourself, the giving and taking. But so often, the way this is taught, everybody wants to jump to, oh, let me take in other people's suffering and I'll give them my happiness. And the more you practice, the more depressed you get. No, the instruction says, begin with yourself. And that's such a profound point, begin with yourself. You're like, wait, what do you mean? It means, breathe in your own suffering. Breathe out your own happiness. It's like, what? What does that mean? That's a very special point there, that is overlooked. I train in that first. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I remember when you were here and you gave a retreat on Maitri. And you sort of framed it that way, like you recommended a really robust loving kindness self-practice before I even thought about doing Tonglen.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
We need to strengthen up our resources before we go about giving away our resources. Ultimately, yes. Ultimately, it's an infinite font of resources. But until we tap into that, if our well is not, dug deep enough, it will run dry very quickly. Then the seeds of virtue will be fried. So sometimes when we are too eager to do good, to look good, we could accidentally, fry some of these seeds of virtue. Seeds of happiness. Seeds of benefit. So I'm afraid I have to leave, but you guys don't have to leave. You have another half an hour. I need to go attend to things I need to attend to before I hop on the plane tomorrow. But please, you all should continue. I'm going to take my leave now. Next Sunday, I'm going to be in the middle of a retreat in Guatemala, so I cannot meet. But I do intend for the following Sunday to meet with you guys.
Oh,
Yay.
yeah. Have a safe.
Yeah, so then there is the Introduction to Buddhism course that is coming up. I'm sure ABS will say more about that and how you guys can participate and all of that. So stay tuned. Tata.
Ta-ta. Thank you.
Safe travels.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. There's Karen Law.
So let's do gallery view.
Gallery, there you go.
So what
Right, there you have-
was he talking about?
Introduction. Yeah.
Well, he's doing this introduction to Buddhism class on 8 sessions starting on December 1st. And I asked him if EBS could officially participate in it. And so, yes, we can. It's on Zoom. You can register and do it from home if you want to, of course. Obviously, people are doing that. We are also going to use the bookstore and another TV setup like this to for people who want to come here and do it together, so that you could there could be some discussion. And also, we will get the videos from him. And I think maybe in the spring, promote it broadly to everyone that comes to EBS as a class that would be like on Monday night or something. Where we, in this room, where we could have a lot of people, and we would watch the videos and discuss them and use it as an opportunity for people to get to know each other as well as studying this class with him. But what he told me about it, I asked him, is it appropriate for total newcomers or only for your people that have been studying like this? And he said, no, he's really intending it for newcomers. I mean, it should be easy for newcomers. And he said that he's trying to invent a new way to introduce Buddhism based on Milarepa's encounter with the cowboy or whatever story that was. I think that was Rinpoche, but I'm not sure. Where he just said, go home and look at your mind, right? Didn't give the guy any theory or lists or, no karma talk, no hell realm talk, just a way to approach it in terms of what is mind.
Yeah.
Herder boy.
Herder boy, yeah.
Yeah. It just clicked.
Yeah.
Yeah, we read.
Yeah.
What?
So he's doing that, and he said each class, this is just what he told me, but each class will be 2/3 of him lecturing about the subject, and then a practicum, he calls it, which is like homework that we would like Milarepa gave the kids, we would go home and work with it ourselves. And yeah, so it's all described on their website. They have a page for it, which lists the 8 topics. And it's only $50 for the whole thing. And so I'm registered myself and I'm going to be doing it, but I'm going to be sitting in the bookstore here with the TV. If anybody else wants to sit here with me.
I will. I'm signed up and I'd rather do it with other humans.
Yeah. So it'll be a small group in there because this room Thursday nights has the Thich Nhat Hanh group. And we have to be quiet.
Oh, so we'll be in the bookstore.
So we'll be in the bookstore.
Okay.
So, but that's okay. And I'm sure that people rotate in and out, not always be there, but
Sure.
so there's the story. It's very exciting. I can't.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Diane signed up for it.
Hey.
Oh, right, Diana.
I just mentioned that he was offering it, and she just said, "Oh, I'd like to take that." I didn't twist her arm. It was great. I put a link for it in chat.
I'd love to know what Diane thinks about it too. Hear how she thinks of it.
Yeah.
So is it 6:30 on Thursday nights?
It'll, yes, 6:30 our time. It's 7:30 in Asheville, but 6:30 our time, Thursday nights.
Same time as the group that meets, is it 6:30 or?
No, the group meets at 7.
Yeah, okay.
So they told us to please just come, it's Paul's group, Thich Nhat Hanh group, they just said that we should be quiet, not.
He said primarily coming and going.
Right, that's the
Because they're not
biggest.
going to be able to hear probably then. But we have the door closed.
We will end at the same time as them, but we start half an hour sooner than they do, so They'll be bothering us, but that's okay. We can.
Just don't get too rowdy.
Yeah, no tap dancing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you can sign up and do it at home on Zoom yourselves if you want to. That's another easy way to do it. If you don't want to go out at night and stuff,
We'll have cookies though.
but anyway.
Say no
And we'll
more.
come back. And we will come back to it in sometime later in a bigger way, more people in this room watching it, but
Well, that's cool. Thank you.
yeah.
I have a question for everybody.
Yeah.
You're mentioning Milarepa, and I wasn't, here until recently when y'all were wrapping up that Milarepa thing. I wonder, because I kind of want to hear what you are feeling in your practice as we're starting to do this Lojong study. Were there things that you were doing in your daily practice while you were studying Milarepa that is now like deeply enriched by now we're combining it, overlapping with the Lojong practice, or are you, where are you going personally is kind of what I'm wondering about.
I don't think the Milarepa thing was not a practice like this.
Yeah.
It was like hearing these stories and talking about it more kind of the view. To me, it was more like the view of Buddhism, although we always talked about our own understanding and stuff like that. But
Have you listened to any of the recordings of Dr. Lai talking about Milarepa?
No.
Those are available.
so they're all online. We could
on the EBS.
Okay.
on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, and so they're like stories, about Milarepa's wanderings in the mountains and people he meets, and Dr. Lai just expands on them wonderfully. So it's fun to listen, of course.
But this is different, right?
Yeah, this is different.
Lojong. Yeah.
Yeah, Lojong, yes.
So answer him, folks. Come on.
I 6 months ago, somebody asked me at a different meditation group I was with, what my practice was. And I look back at that and I remember thinking, well, I don't know, here I do this and then I do that. Then I make sure I always say this at the end, and I hadn't really thought of like, this is the practice I do.
That's your practice.
Yeah, but that is my practice, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and I don't have any doubt about what it is now. I kind of I realized that after it came out of when they asked me that I was like, oh, this is what I do. And I've kind of been journaling like, okay, as I spent a few months thinking a lot about this and getting a lot of benefit, and then I kind of move over to this, and now the Lojong thing is it's all kind of folding in on each other and making a nice little bread,
So you wandered in the space. If you were going to a Zen practice, there'd be a practice.
Yeah.
You know what it was.
Yeah.
After the first day. Anyway, so it is different. Yeah.
I don't like Dr. Lai said, looking and seeing that it's all coming to the same point of eliminating self-grasping.
Yeah.
That's
it.
I mean, I think the answer though is we're all doing different things. Like I'm doing the practice. I have a teacher in Nepal, and I'm doing the practice he gave me. But I've done in the past, I've done periods of time where I did Lojong, and so it's a certain period of time of meditating, the way he describes it with the breaths, and then contemplating the slogans and reading and studying every day. That's a very traditional way to do it. I think if people here were doing that together, and then we came here and talked about it, that would be even better,
If we shared exactly a method of
the
practice.
method, yeah. So I mean, I think all of us are doing some version of the sitting meditation and watching your breath kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there could be other things.
I was going to say, over the years, my daily practice has really changed. Like I've taken on different things as I learn them and switch from one thing to the other, to the other, to the other, and so, but when we were reading Milarepa, there was no specific practice taught, in relationship to that. So my daily practice didn't change. Yeah.
I imagine you must have been maybe inspiring to read the Milarepa stuff, but it didn't really change how you did what you did on a daily basis.
No.
And the Milarepa thing was sort of fruitional. There was never teaching techniques or anything. It was just him relating to people in a fruitional way, enlightened way, and stories that were very mythic. And there's a kind of a saturation of that kind of Tibetan magic of enlightenment, so there's an atmosphere in a way that we spent 3 years
Just soaking in it.
soaking in it and talking about dakinis and mountain spirit.
And in fact, it would say in your story, it would say, this person, he met this person, blah, 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 and then they would say, and then Milarepa gave them instructions.
And he was in like.
Never said what they were. No, never. That's right. And they would go off and do it, and they would come back and have had these experiences, so. To do, it was just like, oh. So we were often going, I wish he would tell me what to do.
And when we talked about that, we would say, oh, okay, so what we can take away from that is that the instructions are specific to each person, probably. It's not like a program for everyone.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say, as a result of our 3 years spent with the Milarepa text, like one of my biggest takeaways was his emphasis was on experience over book learning.
Yeah.
Like basically made fun of black letters on white paper. I mean, as a way to achieve anything. His emphasis was do it, walk the walk.
And working with the face them.
Yeah. Just,
It's really good.
go to a cave. I mean, he would say in a cave, that's one prescription he has. But we can take cave as a metaphor too,
You're supposed to abandon your family, Chris. And,
That's right.
Well, and Lojong, along with other Buddhist traditions and teachings, also emphasizes you have the practice, but you also have taken the practice into your life.
Yeah.
So taking it off the mat is maybe more Zen way of saying.
Yeah.
To me, that's an important part of it.
For the months or years, I've had this idea that in order to kind of bring my formal practice more into during the break, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if every time I walked through a threshold, like from one room to another, I kind of paused and was like, okay, cultivate bodhicitta, relative ultimate, and then go in with a fresh mindset to whoever's in the room, And I never could get myself the presence of mind to do it even once, but I just, and then but more recently, I've caught myself within a minute or two of coming into the room, kind of like when I notice my thoughts wandering in mindfulness, 21 breath type of meditation practice, going, okay, here I am. I just came in, let me reset. And I find it like my social anxiety just gets out of the way, and it's okay, let's reset on every preconceived idea I have of the person that's in this room. And I don't know, I kind of just feel a lot more comfortable with people and less self-conscious. I don't know, I guess that's a 0.5 type of confirmation. It's hey, whatever you're doing is,
and you can see the value of it. So it's inspiring.
Yeah.
Keeps you going in your practice when you see how it works in your daily life.
Yeah,
I like
definitely.
his thing about space too. When I was going through this Lojong training, when I was going through it, I was also involved in this big lawsuit, and it was just hell. And it was only about money, so it's just only about money, but still. Anyway, the idea of space. So I would be in these rooms with lawyers and depositions, and I would think, where's the space in this room? I would literally look out the window and look for the horizon, or in any situation, just the idea of introducing space was hugely liberating. Same thing, would change the whole environment for me. Nobody knew I was doing it. It's not like I suddenly glowed or didn't said anything, whatever, but it was settled down everything. And so I think that's a very good sign of Lojong practice, that it infuses your whole day, when you're working with it, because that's why they call it so powerful, because it's very pointed. You know, it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna meditate every day. It's very like, you're watching, are you getting kinder and softer and more open? And everything you do reflects that. That's kind of the quality of Lojong practice, I think. It's great.
Yeah.
It's
But I
kind of
can
like
see,
work. It's kind of like work. You know, when I go in and I have to deal with all these people and people that, I mean, just, you know, oh my gosh, are so totally different from me. You know, I mean, like anyway, in just so many ways. And you know, just not to go crazy at work
Yeah.
yeah,
is a big showing of, because, you know, I mean, I've worked a long time and I've had to do stuff to, because if you don't work on it and deal with it, they say it'll come back like in another dress or whatever, it'll just come back. And so, you know, I've just worked to work through these things and work through them. So I don't have to go back to them. You know, I can go to the next step. And I never know what the next step is going to be. And this next step with my new job has been a challenge. Also, I thought I would be done with it. So, you know, it's never ending. You know, it's like either, you know, you're going to have suffering or either you do the Dharma, because suffering is inevitable unless, you know, you do the Dharma.
I like what you said about space too. It made me think about this room and how much we love this room. And all the meditations that have happened here, and the trees and the teachers. This room is space, you know, you can really feel it. That's the way I feel it.
Yeah, big windows.
Yeah.
But it's blue sky.
Yeah.
It's funny, our landlord or the guy that sold us the building, he used to keep thinking that we wanted to block out all the light, that people meditate in caves. So he was always like, well, don't you want to put curtains? I was like, no.
You want to see the sky.
He was picturing people in caves.
Well, there isn't, you know, it feels bad.
But I think the cave people also look out the front and look at the sky. They're not in there in the dark. You know?
That's right.
I did
They
like,
live in the cave, but they meditate out in front of it.
I did like this room, which is like a cave.
Yeah.
And back when before it was renovated, it was really like a cave.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, I like it. I like it too.
Anyway.
You know, the space thing and nature and people, you know, I hear people all the time saying that, you know, nature is like, you know, my higher power or whatever, you know, because you can resonate so well with it. And, you know, like Native Americans and so many people, but that space is just so important to be able to think open mind, you know. I mean, it's because, you know, I catch myself going like this and, you know, have to let it go. It's opening the door.
Yes.
And a lot of other things. Yeah.
Yeah, when I think about the space, you know, this topic we're discussing is not so much actual space, but it's the distance between the part of me that's observing and then the thinking part. That's the space that I want to cultivate, right? That's the space between the proliferation of thoughts that is necessary for something like Tonglen, right? So you don't have to be caught up in your suffering or someone else's suffering. Just transform it.
But it's all the same, isn't it, Melissa?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, no, I understand what you're saying. That's what's so frustrating, is that it's all the same.
I'm gonna try and I've got a question about dualism. One of my friends asked me about it. And do you use dualism as a tool? Do any of y'all do that? She was kind of asking me about it. And do you use dualism like where you don't want to be overly, what's the word? I guess that space between dualism that we're all talking about is the place where you are peaceful. You're not overly excited. You're not overly happy. You're not overly mad or angry or depressed. And the space that y'all are is the space between the dualism. Is that what y'all are kind of talking about? Or how do y'all use dualism as a tool?
I want to ask you for clarification, but I think of the word equanimity, like not too excited about something or too, afraid, or no attachment and aversion somewhere between that. As I think of equanimity, is that a word that you're?
Yes, yes, it is.
I had a teacher who talked about the benefits of living between the yes and the no.
Wow.
There you go.
I mean, because when I grew up, I said no to everything, and I was just shriveled up and like this. Just no, no. And now that I'm in the yes, I've got some space. It's day and night. It's exact. I understand that, Jim.
I don't get what you mean by using dualism as a.
Oops.
I was just wondering, it's like, it kind of helps you decipher what you do want and what you don't want. Do y'all use it? This, my friend was asking me about dualism, and I said, well, I've heard about that in, Buddhism, but do they use it as a tool to help you decipher what you want, what you don't want in order to get to that place of equanimity? I don't know. Does that resonate with any of y'all? Do y'all, or do they?
Yeah, everything has, there's two sides to everything.
Right.
So I think just like, in 12-step groups or here or whatever, we just have to, we have to learn the view that he was talking about and the methods of how to do that, because there's always those two sides.
Right.
What are you going to pick? Everything we do is what our mind chooses.
Right.
Am I going to do this, or am I going to do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in a way, it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Well, in the Buddhist context, when you say the word dualism, I think of self and other.
Okay.
Right? So a dualistic mind frame is self and other, as being two separate things, right?
Oh, okay. That's new to me.
And then non-dual, and then conversely, non-dual is there's no separation.
So duality is an illusion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That resonates. Yeah.
Junk,
Yeah. Yeah. It is an illusion. Dualism is an illusion. Yeah, I like that.
But we live in it, so there's that.
We are basically. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
So we're out of time.
Yeah,
We are kind of running out of time.
We are.
From there.
Okay, guys, so let me pull up our dedication. Hold on just a second. Goodness.
Melissa, your desktop drives me crazy.
It only jumbles to share the screen. Only when I don't share it, it's all organized.
So
we're not so crazy.
Thanks for doing all of this, Melissa.
Thank you so much.
I don't know how to make this good, but anyway.
Okay.
What did
What did you tell the excellent and precious mind? Where it is unborn, may it rise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.